If I could only eat one legume for the rest of my life, I would choose these. Do you call them chickpeas or garbanzo beans? Well, I sometimes call them falafel beans. And that's what we're making today on this episode of Sip and App. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, and packed with flavor, these homemade bite-sized delights are always a hit whether you're a meat eater or a vegetarian. I'm also going to be sharing my simple yet best tahini sauce to go with them, and a super fun way of serving them to your guests. So let's dive right in and get started. First, we'll begin with a cup of dried chickpeas that have been soaked in water for at least 8 hours or overnight. You might be tempted to use canned chickpeas, but unfortunately they won't work in this particular recipe. So even though it takes some time and planning ahead, do make sure to start with the dried chickpeas. Once soaked, drain them thoroughly and set them aside. We'll be using a combination of fresh parsley, cilantro, and scallions, along with garlic, onions, and cumin, all of which will add a wonderful depth of flavor. Roughly chop these ingredients and set them aside. In a food processor, add all of the ingredients and pulse the mixture until it forms a coarse paste. Make sure to scrape the sides a few times. And be careful not to over-process, as we want a bit of texture in our falafels. You want them to be just firm enough to stick together and be able to roll into balls. Using a small spoon or cookie dough scooper like I am, take portions of the mixture and roll them into balls or flatten them into small patties, whichever shape you prefer. If the mixture feels too wet, you can add a bit more chickpea flour to help bind it together. Let them chill in the fridge for at least an hour, which will help the flavors meld and make the mixture firm up a little. While the mixture is chilling, let's prepare our tahini sauce. As always, the exact amount of each ingredient is listed in the description box below. Depending on the thickness of your tahini, you may need more or less water than the recipe calls for. So add the water a little at a time until you reach your desired consistency. Now we're ready to cook our falafels. Heat a good amount of oil for shallow frying in a skillet over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, gently lower the falafels into the oil, being careful not to overcrowd the pan. Fry them until they're golden brown and crispy on all sides, which should take about 2 to 3 minutes per side. And since I'm already sipping while I'm cooking, let me recommend pairing these falafels with a refreshing cucumber mint lemonade or a light crisp white wine. But as I always say, you do you. Once they're cooked, transfer the falafels to a paper towel lined plate to drain any excess oil. Now they're perfectly delicious on their own, drizzled with the tahini sauce, but my favorite way to serve them is on a falafel sandwich. Of course, in true sip and app fashion, I'm showing you exactly how I serve them in bite sizes to my guests with my mini falafel sandwich bar. And by the way, if you're wondering how to make these cute mini pita pockets, don't worry, the recipe is available in the description box below. And there you have it, Homemade falafels with all the delicious fixins. I bet you and your guests will devour them in no time. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe for more delicious recipes and cooking tips. Thanks for watching. Cheers!